Just start again.
Okay.
So yes, your name?
David Ridenauer.
David Ridenauer. And what are you doing here in Copenhagen?
Well, we're trying to make sure that an alternative point of view is presented. We're very concerned about carbon limits harming the economy, especially when we're right now in a global recession, and we don't want to push ourselves back into it.
Okay. So what do you think? Is it what's more useful, carbon limits in terms of emissions or carbon limits in terms of use?
Well, I think certainly people can conserve, but when you have carbon limits, especially when you're doing things such as in the United States we're proposing cap and trade, it's subject to all sorts of maneuvering.
Yeah.
You know, that is, from my way of thinking, a way to avoid accountability and transparency, and whatever we do has to be completely transparent.
And what's the main problem with cap and trade in your opinion?
Well, the potential for corruption, and it is an extraordinarily inefficient means of getting to it. I also believe that at this particular juncture, especially with recent information coming out of East Anglia University about an attempt to stifle honest scientific debate on global climate change, that we need to go back and re-examine all that, find out to what degree the science that we think we're basing this all on is real.
Okay, really? So you're actually you could be a climate skeptic or somebody that
I could be. I'm not a scientist. So,
okay.
But one thing that I do know as somebody who's involved in public policy analysis is that when I write a paper on anything whatsoever, we footnote it. We have a source. Now, if you go back and take a look at what they have at East Anglia University, they've destroyed the original raw data. You know what? How can you have credibility at all when the raw data upon which your analysis is based cannot be subject to review?
Well, does that whatever happened in East Anglia University, does that override scientific and analysis papers from 1979, from, for instance, the Jasons or from Colorado University, that predicted exactly the scenario that we're seeing in temperature change at the moment?
Look, it doesn't negate that, but what it does do, especially when you find out that they're trying to spike other people from getting their scientific opinion out there, the scientific process is one of putting all your information out there and having it subject to debate. And there has been an undue pressure to make sure that everybody is saying exactly the same thing. And what you know, from my perspective, at the end of the day, what is going to determine whether or not climate change is occurring is what actually happens.
Yeah.
I won't be deciding that. Somebody's going to be right, somebody's going to be wrong, but the important thing is that both sides of that debate are allowed to speak out and to have a real, instead of the political activists among scientists, have scientists that are focusing on the science itself and debating different theories.
Okay. So, an important question for me would be that, so if you're a little bit worried about whether it's all real and etc., what would convince you in the end that there is man-made global warming?
Well,
who could tell you or in what way would you have to take the information so you're really convinced about it?
Well, I think I would have to have more observed temperature increase. I would also have to
more because there is a paper, the East Anglia data set contained a PDF which has for almost 60 countries the temperature increase clearly showing. The only one is
yes,
Ecuador.
And also if you take a look at where a lot of the temperature measurements are placed, I mean, there's been a thorough analysis of that as well. Things such as placed on runways, placed near exhausts. You know,
okay, so
the reality is that when you're talking about temperature measurements and consistency of them, you have to have them in the same place as they were previous. The reality is that you can't compare apples and oranges, and frequently that's what we're doing.
So what you mean,
now,
for instance, there is a measurement station here in Denmark where there's an airport now, or there was an airport and nothing else, and now there's a city around it.
Exactly. There's going to be changes there, but even worse than that, we found in the United States, at least with a lot of our temperature measurements, that they've been placed in very peculiar places, near barbecues, and you should really see some of the information out there. But having having said all that, look, you become convinced. Let's say I am convinced that global climate change is occurring. Then the exact wrong way to do it is through cap and trade, a cap and trade system. A more efficient means, and this is where I agree with some of the environmentalists. If we determine that we have to do something, which I'm not there yet, but if we determine that we have to do something, you're talking about taxation instead of some convoluted process that is not transparent.
But isn't like taxation, I have to close down because it's going to be too long, but taxation is kind of a fear trigger.
I know it's a fear trigger.
It's a simplification because it's investment in free energy basically eventually, because if you invest in your alternative energy, then after a few years you don't have to pay for energy anymore.
Well,
you could turn it around as an investment.
Well, the beauty of taxation is that is something that goes through the normal political process where the public can determine, okay, I'm paying this much tax and this is what I'm getting for it, versus cap and trade, which is a hidden tax. And some people who have effective lobby operations will get their individual cutouts, and it's not even. You're setting up a system where there are people who are politically powerful, who are getting what they want. Those who are not, do not get it. That's why taxation is a lot more fair means of doing it. Again, I'm not there.
Okay.
I don't think we should be doing that either at this point.
Well, it's interesting to follow how that debate is finally decided, because I'm a believer in that there's some facts out there, and if you recognize the facts and you have a criteria by which you recognize them, in the end you have to kind of admit that you're either right or you're either wrong.
Right.
The way to go about it. But
exactly.
Thanks for talking a lot.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you.